This is the Talking Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this week and welcome back again to our platform. Yeah, we are super excited to be back again. So I have with me on the show this week an interesting guest, and of course, he is our special guest for this episode. Yeah, he makes his first debut as well. So he's going to help us talk through this week's topic of discussion, which is redefining education in Africa. He's actually having a background in education and he's a professional educator. So yeah, we found him very fitting for this topic of discussion. And of course, we can't wait to have this conversation going because yeah, he's going to give us a lot of, his opinion and also knowledge to just understand about both the past and the current education system in Africa. Make sure you follow us on our YouTube channel, which is The Talking Podcast, and also follow us on Instagram, The Talking Podcast. You can also listen to the audio version of this podcast on all the podcasting platform, which is Apple Podcast, Spotify, and also Google Podcasts. And of course, don't forget to drop in your comments also in the comment chat box where you feel like, okay, yeah, you have an opinion also to raise on this topic of discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our guest this week on the show. Okay, hello, sir. Welcome to the Talking Podcast.
Hi, David. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for coming here.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. We've been waiting for this moment, and yeah, finally, our guest is here. And of course, yeah. So please, I wish I could introduce you, but I think I'm gonna give you this opportunity to just introduce yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, David. My name is Damilola Fasoranti. I am an educator, just like you said,
Yeah.
social entrepreneur as well. I have a decade of experience working both private sector and the public sector, and also non-government organization as well, specifically in education, helping young people and professionals to turn their education, their talents, and their skills into jobs and into any other thing that they actually desire based on their own goal.
Amazing. Once again, welcome, sir.
Thank
Very
you.
happy here to have you. And yeah, so we have a very interesting topic of discussion, which is indeed in line with your background. Yeah. So we're talking about redefining education in Africa. So we know that the narratives is changing and also the world is changing itself. So as main systems, are changing in different kind of departments. Yeah. So to begin with, I would like to get your opinion, first of all, from what you think so far about the current education system in Africa, as well as on the past education system about Africa.
Wow, that's huge. and thanks for asking that question. Well, I think you mentioned something quite interesting about the fact that things are changing. So when we think about the current situation and the past, there's a whole lot of difference so far. Now, let's compare a little bit, maybe say 10 to 20 years ago. There's a whole lot of changes that has happened, especially with the advent of technology in the educational system within the continent. And what you see is that this technology has created new opportunities in education, new dimensions, new modes, right? New medium of education as well. So people could actually listen and learn. People could watch and learn. People can be anywhere and learn. So in the past, we didn't have that luxury of technology being in place, for people to really be able to do learning and, and sharing. But now we have those changes happening. And so you see that many things that couldn't be done in education before can be done now. But then it also brings new challenges, right?
Yeah.
So, and some of the challenges is the fact that even though technology has come into the continent, there are so many parts of the continent where technology has actually not got into. And when we say technology, I mean, technology can be very crude and it could be very advanced, right?
Yeah.
Technology is everywhere, even in grassroots communities or even in the cities. But then the challenge that the technologies that are coming to education pose to us is that many people are going farther and some other people are going very far. So some are behind and some are going further, right? That's the kind of educational system that we're having. So accessibility is becoming more difficult for certain people. For some other people, accessibility is becoming even more possible, right? So you have an educational system that was really backward at a time, but now we have the educational system being in two parts. One is going so advanced. For some other people, they're still in the same state of how education has always been. So this is what is happening. The past, we could still see a reflection of the past even in the present, even with the advent of technology. Yeah. And of course, we cannot run away from our past.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's like it was a foundation of where we are and where we're going.
Yeah. So we can't run away from the past. And we always have to actually check the past to see where we are right now and where we are going. So if I want to think about education, looking at the past and now, I would say that a lot of needle has been moved. Things have gotten much better. But then there's a whole lot of challenges that is also happening at the moment. Why? The growth rates is going so fast. And it's looking like education that we have has not been able to kind of catch up with the population that we currently have on the continent. And so more challenges are coming up because we have not created the systems to cater for this kind of population bloom that we have. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with you there when you talk of technology indeed. I feel like, the education system in Africa now is also embracing technology.
Yeah.
In different kind of learning institutions. Now, this also takes me to the next question. So we know that many people are very obsessed with formal education compared to informal education. Now, as an educator, what is your take on that?
Wow. I think my take is very wide and very broad.
I can imagine, yeah.
Because I'm one person that has kind of advocated for not one form of education, right? Not just formal education. So we have different types of education, right? We have formal, we have informal, we have semi-formal, right? So in Nigeria, I created something that we call schools without teachers, like a maker space for people in the grassroots communities, where people can actually come to, no matter your age, no matter your educational status, no matter your skills or talents, you could just come there and then learn and grow and use that knowledge to create whatever possibilities, right? And so creating that made me to see a difference that we've not been embracing as a continent. Everybody wants to get a certificate, like you want to go to school and then, finish secondary school and then go into university and get a certificate. So you have a degree, you have a master's and all that. And so you're respected. But the truth is this: most of our education, all of us, did not start from school. Our education started in the most informal way. It started from home. It started from the communities. So there is no way you want to put informal or semi-formal education behind. It's not possible. You could give birth to a child today and dump that child in school. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Education starts from not just home, it starts from the womb.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, education starts from the womb, which is not formal in any way, right?
Yeah.
So the child begins to move in the womb and begins to, okay, today I feel very cold, today I feel very hot. The child is beginning to learn how to cope in the womb. And then the child eventually comes out and is introduced into a family, a mother, a father, siblings. So the child begins to learn, begins to see, okay, the child is trying to make sense of the world.
Yeah.
When people laugh at me, okay, should I laugh? When people scream at me, should I scream back? Yeah. So informal education will always be existing. Always. So the only thing is, are we embracing it as actually a real form of education that we're supposed to promote? Or are we constantly saying that formal education is the only path that we should follow? Right? This is the main conversation. Informal cannot go anywhere. It must always stay. But then the question again is, the formal education that we have, what is the yield? Right? So people go through the formal learning. Sometimes they are unemployed. Sometimes they get employment. Sometimes people expect that when you go through formal learning, you should be wise. You should have all the knowledge in the world. But the truth is, formal education cannot define a whole human being. Education is life in its entirety, both formal, both informal, both semi-formal, the ones you get in school, the ones you get at home, the ones you get with your friends, trying to make sense of the world.
Yeah.
So informal education is here to stay forever.
Amazing. So I asked that question because growing up, of course, in the past, our parents used to tell us, you really have to go to, attend formal education and become a doctor, become a nurse. And then as we are also growing up, we find that it's a bit competitive in the society. and the reality is also a bit different, you find that people who have actually not gone for formal education are doing very much better even than those people who have gone for formal education, right? You find that maybe people who are doing businesses, if you ask them, they'll tell you like, I never even had gone to school. I studied the business, and other people are succeeding in different kind of things. And I think with that, many young people maybe are also trying to really think about this, two-way thing, right? Like, can I really invest my time into formal education, or I can probably also just maybe go for informal education and become somebody in life and become successful. And now I think the world is changing. And of course, I feel, as you said, this is something that we cannot leave behind. Informal education will always be there. So now, as a professional educator for you, what do you consider to be the most effective ways in redefining the African education system?
Wow. Redefining
Yeah.
educational system. Wow. Well, there's a whole lot of things, and there's a whole lot of ways, and I would not say one way is the best of redefining education.
Right.
I believe that education should be something that people could actually define for themselves. Okay. Yes, we have formal education that is very structured, especially in school. And we have informal education, like I mentioned, this happens to you every day. As you wake up, as you sleep, and things like that. It happens, right?
Yeah.
So if we are saying that we want to redefine education on the continent, it means we are not just talking about formal education, redefinition, right? It means we are talking about education in its entirety, right? There's difference between learning, there's difference between learning, education, and schooling. It's completely different. So redefining education in its entirety means that we are intentionally creating a form of education for ourselves that helps us to make sense of the world. Making sense of the world means, one, is helping us to really build our potentials to be able to create what we want.
Yeah.
Two, it is helping us to be a contributor in our communities, not just contributing a mess, but contributing positively. It means that the socioeconomic aspect of the country, we are able to contribute to that based on the fact that we have knowledge and we are turning that knowledge into usage, right? So if we want to redefine education on the continent, it is something all of us needs to do. It cannot just be done by the school or by the government or through policies. It's something every one of us needs to decide that we can actually create meaning in the world. So let's think about it for a moment. What can a child contribute to the community? A child that is just born.
Yeah.
What can that child contribute to the community? For you, you don't think about it so much that a child eats the food every day is probably not contributing anything. But you know what? This child is contributing happiness. This child is contributing resilience. This child is also contributing some kind of community power. What do I mean? So you give birth to a child, everybody's happy and excited, there's this kind of euphoria in the home to the parents and to every other person. The parents are facing new challenges because of this child.
Yeah.
So they need to fend for money, for feeding, for clothing, and all of those things, right? So it's building skills in the parents to be resilient, to want to do more, right? And all of those kind of things. Now, the parents need to probably buy food, buy all of that. So they need to make money to be able to do that. As they are buying food and making money, they are contributing to the economics of the country. As they are building resilience, that resilience is also becoming a transferable skill in the marketplace or even at the workplace for them. So you see, a child which is just born is actually helping us get educated, but we don't realize it. So if we want to transform education on the continent, we need to begin to think about what skill set, what competence does every individual on the continent need to be able to make sense of this life, to be able to contribute, to become a real contributor, not just waiting for things to happen to them, but constantly looking at what do I need to learn, where do I need to be, who do I need to connect with that will make me a better person. that make me contribute in the home, in the community, and the society at large?
Interesting. I was actually going to that question later on like who are the key players when it comes to redefining, the African education system. And I'm glad that you did mention, of course, like nobody should be left behind. And I feel like in the past there was like this gap. You find that education is for everybody, and education it's like for young people, right? Especially when you talk of primary and secondary education. But you find that when governments are coming up with policies or even how education systems are, for example, in one particular country, you find that young people are left out, which becomes a major problem because it's like you are making things for somebody who does not exist and maybe who hasn't really even presented what their needs are. And I'm glad that you did mention that. Interesting. Now, let's talk about the systems though. Okay. We believe that for things to work properly, each department or each industry, I believe also that there should be like perfect systems, not really perfect, but good systems, right? So as it is at the moment, does Africa have really good education systems? This could be both, even tertiary.
I think it's difficult to say yes or no. Because the continent is huge. Even a country like Rwanda is huge in itself, with different people, with different communities, with different stakeholders. So when you talk about if the system is good, there is no definitive answer for that, right? But what we can say is that there's a whole lot of opportunities to actually grow and to become better.
Nice.
Let us look at it. At the moment, does what we have create the kind of competence in the people that live in each of the countries or in each of the communities? The answer is yes, to some extent, but not on a large scale. So it means that the system needs a lot of rejigging and it needs a lot of revamping, right? That's the reality right now. So, and because we have that opportunity for growth, well, with more challenges, it also gives us it brings the beauty that when we create different solutions, we would have ourselves to enjoy that. That's the kind of opportunity that we have. So the system we have currently is not at its best, but we are moving. But then you see the COVID-19, pandemic also struck at that system and that sector, and then a whole lot of things that were moving forward kind of went backwards, right? And then it shows us that there's actually a real problem here. Although we knew, but it helps us to see that there's a whole lot more problem in the system that we actually need to fix. So we are moving, but the rate at which we are moving, I'm not sure that we're catching up with the kind of population bloom that we are having.
Right?
Yeah.
Interesting. That is Mr. Damilola. Of course, Damilola. I was actually worried, like, okay, did I pronounce that correct? Okay, yeah, so he is actually a professional educator and he is currently the chief catalyst at Prikkle Academy here in Rwanda. Yeah, sharing with us his insights on the topic for this week's episode, which is redefining the education system in Africa. So yeah, interesting indeed points that he's sharing with us. I hope that you are picking one or two. So now before I let you go, currently, you are in the education sector. You are a key player, and of course, you are creating impact out there. And when we talk of Prikkle Academy, what's your mission at the moment, and how are you promoting education, as a catalyst for creating impact in the community?
Great. So, Prikkle Rwanda, we are helping students and professionals to be able to turn their education and their skills into decent jobs. Yes. So what does that look like, in that sense? Every time people are looking to find, to get, and to create jobs. And those jobs could either be in the formal sector and the informal sector or any other sector as you think about it. But there is a big challenge. The challenge is that within the school system and also the community system, people are not learning the skill set that they need to transition into work, either to create work or to find work, becoming an employer or becoming an employee. So what we do, first of all, is helping young people and professionals to rethink their skills, to rethink their stories, to rethink the things they've done in their life. Sometimes you find a student saying that, I don't have any work experience, so there's no way for me to get a job. But we ask you, you've done volunteering. There's some things you've done in your community. There are things you participated in. All of that is some form of experience. They may not be formal experience, but they're a form of experience. So we help people to rethink their story, to rethink their lives, to rethink the things they've done in their life, right? And then help them to bring all that to looking for the jobs, to going for the interviews and being able to actually smash some of those things. There are other people that are within a workplace or they are currently on some kind of job, but maybe those jobs are not decent enough or they don't find fulfillment in them. We also help them to rethink their current career and also move them to transition into the new careers that they want. Again, some people think that, well, if I'm in a country and there are no jobs, it means that my chances are really slim or I don't even know what to do in my life. But hey, there are so many jobs globally. So beyond your country, beyond your community, it is possible that you have certain skill sets that is relevant to a global community. But if you do not even realize that possibility, then you constantly stay in your own bracket, thinking that you cannot advance in life, you cannot move forward. The other part of the divide is that so many people within the school system, like I was mentioning, are learning a lot of things. But then it is not matching the kind of competence that's in the labor market that is needed. So how can we help students right now, while they are learning everything they need to learn, to build the skills and the competencies that they need when they have not even graduated? And so that when they graduate and before they graduate, they could actually begin to get jobs. They can begin to work in organization. So everything that the school is missing, everything that the committee is missing in training young people, this is what we bring to them.
Amazing. Great points there indeed. I like the fact that you are on a mission of really kind of helping people to even use education to also be guided in some way or the other. So maybe this also can also lead me to my next question. So I'd like to see how you are kind of also maybe involving entrepreneurship spirit into the education that you're offering. So how do you work with entrepreneurs? Let's say you identify that you discover that a person maybe who is a student, they are more into entrepreneurship. Maybe they do not want to go to school for them maybe to become a profession in this something, but they just want to become an entrepreneur. How are you helping them?
Wow, great question. One of the things that we kind of say is that entrepreneurship is hard. It's very tough.
I love that.
But then, whatever thing is hard, and you break into it, it also means that you're going to build a lot of competence, and you'll be able to really do a whole lot of things if you break into that. So the way we do that is first identification. Okay, what are your kind of interests? What are the things that really catches your fancy in that sense? So when we identify all that, that's just one part. The next part is how do you start all of those things, right? So what are the resources and the tools that you need? So some people need funding. Most time people mention funding. But funding is usually not even the first thing.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the first thing?
The first thing is your motivation. Because if you have all the money and you have all the resources and the people and you are not driven, right? You don't have that internal drive to make this possible. All the resources will still be there for you and things will crash. If you don't have the inner competence, right, to really make things work, it means when things are crashing, you crash. That's what happens. So for us, we are not just looking at, okay, how do you get funding, right? Or how do you get team members? Or how do you, all of those things. Let us think about even what you want to start. What is the business idea? Is this an idea that needs to be launched now or later? Because the timing of everything is very important. Another thing is timing. Sometimes you have all the money, but the timing of launching that business is the wrong time. Sometimes you need to learn with an entrepreneur or even with an employer and build certain competencies before you launch your own thing. So there's a whole lot of things that really comes to play. So, but one thing that we talk about is that whatever resources, the tools, and the support that you need to create jobs, we have it for you. So you need to build certain competencies. If we need to attach you to a company, either within Rwanda or outside, we would facilitate that. If you need to learn how to get your team members, how to recruit, how to do all of those kind of things, we have that. If you need to learn how to get funding, why not? We will walk you through the whole journey, creating the proposals, putting together your ideas, putting out there. Then there's another part of it. How do you get the customers? We have all the money, but there is no customer, there is no audience. Then what product do you have? So like I said, it's a lot of moving pieces. And for each person that comes to us, they are usually at a particular point. Some at a point where they don't know how to get customers. Some at a point where they don't know how to put things out. Some are at a point where they don't even know how to communicate the business that they have, right? So we meet them at where they are, and then we groom them towards where they want to go. Either it's to start right now, it's to start later on, or either it's to kind of make it boom or blossom in that sense. Yeah.
Interesting. This also kind of like links me to one of the statements I found on one of the pages. It's one of this institution, I think in South Africa. It's called Move Africa. Move Africa. Yeah. So they say something like, education is not just a fundamental human right. It's actually a pivotal to increasing employment and income opportunities. It is fundamental to breaking the cycle of poverty. Yeah, and education is key to unlocking the golden door of freedom for all in Africa. It is also the bedrock of social and economic development.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And yeah, that's nice. What you're doing is actually great. And I feel like this is something that we need in the society, to kind of also not just look at education as going to primary school, secondary school, and then maybe go to college. Yeah, so interesting now. But as I let you go, what's to say now on the way maybe education in Africa is, and also what's your advice, let's say, for any upcoming, educators or entrepreneurs out there who wanna, dive into education sector, maybe for business purposes?
Wow, great point there. I think we need to create a kind of education that is practical, that is relevant, that is tailored, and that actually solves problems.
Interesting.
So if you are, say, a person that wants to go into education, or you're already thinking of doing something within, the, within the space, constantly think about what kind of education am I creating that would help people by themselves to create the life that they desire. We've moved from, what we used to have is mass education, and we still have it in schools. Students are taught the same thing. You all come to the same lecture.
Yeah.
Lives cannot be transformed that way, right? Because every human being is unique. So everyone needs their own form of education. So we need to create a kind of education that you can take for yourself and transform it into your own usage, right? So everybody is no longer just taking one form of education. You're having a diverse form of education. You're having education with creativity, not the one that makes you conformed to a certain rules and guidelines. And if you go outside of those guidelines, you're in trouble. No, the kind of education we need to have, and that if you're out there that you need to create, is kind of education that is personalized. Someone can take it and use it, right? It's tailored to them. It's tailored to each community, to each culture, right? To each person, to each, to each problem that you have. That's the kind of education that we actually need to create, because that will help each person to feel like, I am part of this system. This system is not outside of me. I'm creating it together with you. I am, I'm in love with this. This is answering my questions. This is helping me to create the kind of solutions that I want to see. So that's the kind of education that we really need to create on the continent.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming through for that actually vast experience and knowledge that you've shared with us on this topic. Really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Amazing. I was talking to a professional educator who is Mr. Damilola, and we're looking at redefining education in Africa, and he's currently the chief catalyst at Prikkle Academy Rwanda, so you better check them out, and of course, please do in law in their programs, because they just mentioned how impactful their programs are. And of course, this is the Talking Podcast. Thank you so much for staying tuned with us. And of course, don't forget to get in touch with us on all our social media platforms.